Today's show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch that we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their Pitch Right pouches are jam-packed with over 200 billion fresh yeast cells, guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial Yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers who live to help other brewers learn more and ferment better. Join any recipe receiving tier of our Super Duper Homebrew Club and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial Yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club and come brew with us.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
An interview with Fred Coleman, a.k.a. Blind Brew Guy. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 226. Hello and welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question that you would like us to discuss on a future episode, you can go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing. Today I'm joined by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com over there, Mr. James Carlson, as well as the President and Resident Chief Keg Washer of kegconnection.com, Mr. Todd Burns. And you'll see in this little Brady Bunch square I have on screen, we have a fourth guest. He is, we call it Blind Brew Guy, Mr. Fred Coleman. Fred, thank you for joining us, my friend. Oh, wait. It wouldn't be a show if I didn't mute y'all. Hey, Fred, thanks for joining us.
No, it's an honor. I'm really excited about being on the show today.
Well, we're really happy to have you, and I didn't mute y'all on purpose. I'm so sorry. It happens like every other. What was the other thing, Todd? You asked if it was my shtick. You're like, you apologize for messing up, but you mess up every show. I just have to own it. I have to stop apologizing. No, we are super excited to have you. We, at least James and I, because we're more active on Instagram, we've been following you for a long time. You've got a great Instagram channel, and usually I do these as me and the guest for the Homebrewer Showcase that we have, but I've been leaving James and Todd off of these interviews for so many episodes that I think I hurt Todd's feelings. So I did decide to invite them on, and it should be a fun time because, again, we all are very familiar with you. You're a cherished member of our community, and so I'm happy everyone could join us. I want to start off by doing some small talk in-house stuff real quick before we get to the show, and it's very quick. It's not going to be long. Just to remind everybody that our Super Duper Homebrew Club recipes for this month, you can choose between Brian's Kolsch or the Simply Juice Pale Ale. Still haven't brewed either one of those, or I haven't brewed either one. I'm really trying to get to Brian's Kolsch, but Todd has told us we're not brewing anything until we go through some research and development on these other hops, right, boss? That's what you...
Yep.
That was the rule. Okay. So you can learn more information by going to homebrewhappyhour.com/club or homebrewhappyhour.com/support, or join it through Patreon at patreon.com/homebrewhappyhour. I think this is a world record for how quick I've gotten through small talk. We're getting right to the meat and potatoes of this week. Fred, let's talk about your background and history as a brewer. How long have you been brewing, and what got you interested in brewing?
Well, I first started brewing. My brother decided to try to brew some beer back it was either the late 80s, early 90s. It was quite a while ago. It was the pre-hopped extract in a can type deal. We brewed a couple batches. It was okay, but it wasn't good enough to we need to do more of this. So, and there wasn't much information on brewing back then. I mean, I know now we oxidized the hell out of the beer that we made, and we didn't know any better than that. So that's probably one reason why it wasn't so great. But after a few batches, we were raising families, and like I say, it wasn't that great. So we kind of just quit doing it. And then fast forward to about 4 years ago, I had to retire because my vision got to the point where I couldn't do my work anymore. So I was looking for a hobby to fill my time a little bit. I like drinking craft beer, and I started, marrying. Well, we made beer, and maybe I could give that a try again and see if I could copy some of the commercial beers out there. So I bought a Mr. Beer kit, and I asked my wife, "Is it okay?" And I think she regrets the day she said it was, it was okay that I bought that. But I made a couple batches there again. It was drinkable. I served it to some friends. They said it was okay. But again, it wasn't that great. So, but I wasn't going to give up at this point because I'd started doing a lot of reading on the internet. I knew I should be able to make decent beer. So I started, I was on Craigslist, and I bought a setup from some guy for doing extract brewing. And I did that a little bit, and we just kind of progressed from there. My daughter, my youngest daughter, she goes by Norski Brewer on Instagram. She started brewing 1 gallon all grain batches about the same time I was doing the 5 gallon extract batches. And she started trying to convince me to switch to all grain, brew in a bag. So she ended up buying me a kit, an all grain kit from Brooklyn Brew Shop at the time. And it's actually still a recipe I make now because it turned out well. So we did that, brewed it. It turned out really good. It was kind of her and I brewed it together because I was still at the point where I needed help brewing. I wasn't quite at the point I am now where I can brew on my own pretty much. But anyway, it turned out great. And from then on, it's been all grain, brew in a bag. And that's what I use to this date. So.
Was she the one that convinced you to take your adventures to Instagram? Because
she not only convinced me, she set up the account.
I knew it.
Well, what are you talking about? What are you trying to imply there, guys? Old guys can't do it on their own?
In my prior life, I spent 25 years in IT. So but I'm at the point where I buy a new TV. I have one of my daughters come over and set it up for me. But anyway, she set up my Instagram account because she had already set hers up. She said, "Oh, it's a fun place to put pictures of your brew day and stuff like that." So it's like, okay, well, I'll give it a try. And I started posting things on there, and then people started following me, and I started, looking at their photos and commenting and following back. And, next thing 4,500 followers later, it's like, well, this is kind of took off a little bit. So I don't know what to do with it other than I spend probably too much time on there, but it's fun.
It's great. You've got good posts. It's polished. It's there's a reason why you've got that many followers. It's a good read.
The real reason. Go ahead, Fred. Sorry.
Well, if you think it looks polished, I must be doing something okay because they're very impromptu. Very impromptu. It's not staged. I just
No, I didn't mean it that way. It just meant that it's done very well. The pictures are done right. They're relevant. There's not 10 useless posts a day. When you post, it's something worth looking at.
Right. I do try to post content that is relevant to me. What I'm doing. What I'm brewing, and if I'm not brewing, what I'm drinking, stuff like that. So I do try to keep it pretty much beer related, and on some topic anyway. So
the real reason Todd and James are having you on here is because they're interviewing for a social media manager. I'm not good at my job. So.
Well, I don't
believe that.
I have my 8-year-old granddaughter helps me in some of it. So, maybe you should hire her because she she runs the camera sometimes. I've started doing a couple of little videos, and so she'd probably be better at it than I am.
She a fairly hard worker? Or?
Yeah, she is.
Wait a second. Wait a minute. Yeah.
Can she get me in contact with her after the show?
Okay.
I'm editing.
Have to check on the child labor rules.
Yeah.
You know how I feel about child labor, though, Todd. I'm okay with it. Fred, going, like we said, obviously, and you've brought up a little about your vision issues, having to get you into retirement, and you go by Blind Brew Guy. You weren't born with this vision issue per se. This has been degenerative, right? Like it's something that you've dealt with, and it's progressively gotten worse over time.
Right. Yeah. I first noticed in high school that I couldn't see as well in the dark as like a lot of my friends did. And so I was in just for a normal eye checkup, and I mentioned that to the optometrist, and he didn't say much, but he started doing some tests, and then they sent me down to the Mayo Clinic, and they said, yeah, you've got this, fairly rare genetic eye disease, and it's going to continue to deteriorate over time. And it was a question then about how fast it would happen. I actually have a fairly slow progressing form of it. There are people with my condition that are in their 30s and 40s, and they've lost most of their eyesight. And I still have enough eyesight. So if I use there's these electronic magnifiers, like I say, using my phone or this iPad with special accessibility settings, I can still get things done. But it's a challenge. But because it was slow, it's given me the opportunity to adjust as things got worse. So it's there's the big things like when my eyesight wasn't good enough to renew my driver's license, and when work started getting tougher, and I noticed I had to put a lot more time in to get my work done. And, at some point, I went for an exam, and the ophthalmologist said, why are you still working? And I said, well, because I still can work. And he goes, but you realize you have a limited time frame here. Do you want to spend the rest of your good eyesight years or some eyesight years working? And I said, well, yeah, because that's who I am. I mean, your career kind of gets to be your thing, your identity. And so I didn't know how to move forward if I couldn't work, because even like the brewing, I took a lot of satisfaction from being able to do my job as good as people who had full vision. So at some point, though, it's like, this is getting to be too much. And so I stopped, retired from work. And like I say, then I was looking for a hobby, because a lot of my hobbies were outdoor related: fishing, hunting. I still do. I don't hunt anymore. They don't like me to carry guns, but I still fish anyway. But it's a little more difficult. So I needed something to fill my time, and brewing beer turned out to be what I was looking for.
Absolutely. Guys, real quick to enter, y'all judged his entry in the Kolsch Cup. They didn't have names, Fred, so they had no idea, but apparently y'all judged him pretty good too. Like, it was, right?
Well, I don't know, like I say, 43 from Todd and a 41 from James. So, I mean, I don't know. I thought that was good.
They are.
Maybe if everyone else was higher than that, maybe it wasn't good. But
no, Fred, there was a lot of 20s.
That was good enough to almost get into the top 10.
I was telling him before we recorded that it was on the precipice. He was top 16 out of the 59 entries we ended up having.
Okay.
Cool. Because there was a lot. I say a lot. There was a handful of 20s, and there was a lot of high 30s. I think a lot of people we scored pretty close in the high 30s. If you cracked into 40, I think it was a pretty special beer. But I was telling Fred I'm gonna have to pull up the list and see his second bottle in Todd's beer fridge, and have to steal it and try it and give him my own feedback, because that's the I mean, he kind of sounded bummed that y'all judged it and I didn't. So
the thing that they both agreed on was they thought there should have been a little more hop bitterness and aroma. So I mean, it's and I just brewed the kit. So I mean, it's not like
Right.
I did actually add a quarter ounce of hops at about, I think, 15 minutes. I'd have to check my notes, but I thought 1 ounce wasn't, I don't know. I did add a little extra, but maybe I should have gone a little higher.
Well, to be fair, that style of beer, I had a really hard time getting aroma from
Anything.
Right.
the majority of the beers we judged. There were very few that I could detect much aroma from. And it may be something that on the recipe itself, on our recipes, we may want to look at that more and see if we need to add more aroma hops to the recipe, because it was very hard for me to detect aromas. I think some people might have a better smell than I do. So,
you smell.
Yeah, and it could be old hops too that could have caused that as well.
Hey,
Because over time they kind of go away, the aromatics.
You wouldn't sell me old hops, would you?
We try not to.
When I was going to make a joke about Todd saying how difficult it was to judge. Yeah, the longer the day went on, it became infinitely more difficult. That's why we tried to limit to.
Yeah.
well, I should tell you though, originally Josh was like, "Oh yeah, we're going to judge these 50 beers, and we'll judge. So we'll try all of them one day, and then the next day we'll take the top 10 and we'll judge it down from there." And I'm like, "Are you saying that we're all going to have 50 beers in one day?" I'm like, "That's not going to work." I mean,
Look, math is hard for me. We've gone over this. I'm not good at math or toxicology or a lot of things. Fred, was that actually talking about Kolsch Cup before I wrap that part up? Was that your first competition, or are you an avid competitor? Oh, it is.
No,
it was.
No. I was too stressed out by that, and that wasn't even a real competition. It's like I was tasting my beer every day, and I was worried it wasn't clear enough, and I don't usually worry about clarity or color that much because it doesn't matter to me. But I knew it would matter if I sent it in, so I'm pouring glasses, and I'm asking my wife and my daughters that, does it look clear? Is it light enough? I think it looks too dark. And I was super stressed out about it. So,
me too, man.
And like I say, this was this wasn't even a real competition. So I can't even imagine doing that.
No, you're right. It wasn't real. I think somebody emailed me while we were soliciting entries before we closed it off. They were saying something like, "Wait a second. Y'all, none of y'all are BJCP certified, and this and this and this." And I was like, "Correct." And they're like,
"Well, yeah." They were like, several people were like, "You guys are just doing this so people will send you beer." And Josh was like, "Duh."
Yeah, I'm very transparent. Yeah, if I'm not anything, I am honest and transparent. And absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think I'm a Kolsch expert, but like I said, Fred, I'm very excited. I'm gonna try to pull your bottle out, assuming it's still there. I'd separated for Todd. Todd, have you even been drinking any of the second bottles?
No,
okay, good.
I have not. Good. I was kind of waiting for you to get here, but you're taking so long. I'm not sure this weekend I won't get into them. But that's the reason I got that list from you, is when I try one, I want to be able to know like who brewed it, because I didn't get to know that the first time. I want to know who brewed it, and I want to be able to email them and say, "Hey, I tried your beer tonight, and these were my additional thoughts on it," because it's so hard. I guess the thing that was difficult for me was that there were so many good beers that if somebody had just shown up at my house and had that beer and given it to me and said, "Hey, I brewed a Kolsch," I would have been like, "Wow, this is a great Kolsch." But when you have to take, 50 something Kolsches and 40 something of them were actually pretty damn good. Yeah. And there may have been some that weren't, but there were even some that weren't even Kolsch, but for the most part, there were some really good beers there. And it made it very hard. And I'd like to go back and try some now, like try yours and say, these are my thoughts on it. So,
well, and I'll tell you, like I say, I brewed the Tudor style kit, but I also thought, well, I can't just send it in without doing something to it. So, the week before, I was actually on a podcast. Dan up at My Adventures in Home Brewing, he's up in Canada. He had Horst Dornbush on the week before.
Oh wow!
And Horst was talking, about alt, but then he also talked a little bit about Kolsch, and he said originally all the beers from the Cologne region had wheat in them. And he said some of them were actually mostly wheat. So it's like, you know what? I threw a half a pound of white wheat malt in the kit, and then I put a quarter pound of Carapils in there just for a little body and head retention. So it's the recipe with the wheat and a little Carapils in there. So.
Nice.
Okay.
And speaking of Dan, we're actually going to be on his show this week. I don't know when he's publishing it. He's interviewing us tomorrow for My Adventures in Homebrewing. Dan's a good guy. And we are, like I said, we've talked, I think through Instagram is where I met him. But he's been a listener of this, and yeah, he launched his own show and yeah, doing good stuff over there. I don't know what hopefully he's not expecting a lot from our interview, because I don't know what we have to offer besides like goofy small talk. But fast forwarding now, the equipment. So you talked about how you came back into extract, did that, started all grain. With your impaired vision, are you having to brew? Do you always have to buddy brew, or have you memorized things and have enough vision to where you are comfortable brewing on the equipment you have? And then also that's leading me to, what is the equipment you're preferring to brew on now? You mentioned brew in a bag earlier. Is that what you're doing today?
Yeah. I still do brew in a bag. When I first started, I definitely needed help. I mean, I had a dial temperature gauge, on a 12-inch stem, and trying to read that. And I have a reader, but it would get all steamed up because, you're looking over a hot pot of water. So my wife or my daughter would be helping me out. I couldn't even really tell when the water was boiling or not, like when to start my, 60-minute boil. So there was a lot of things I could, or at least I wasn't comfortable judging myself yet. And I think I maybe boiled too hard to start with, because I was worried about dropping the temperature too much to a slower boil. But so over the couple years now, I'm totally comfortable with brewing by myself. I like to brew with my daughter, or I've got some friends that like to come over, and I can usually con them into keeping tabs on the temperature gauge and stuff. But I just brewed. I brewed on Monday. I did a batch of my spicy blonde. It's a jalapeno blonde. I don't think my wife was even home when I did it, so I just brewed the whole works up, and numbers came out spot on. So I was happy about that. If anything, my numbers come in high. I probably have to adjust my efficiency. I think I'm running closer to 80%, and I've in the brewing software, Brewer's Friend, I've got like 73 plugged in there, and I'm always higher than that. So, but it took a while to get to this point. A big step was I got I used to use a BioClassic turkey fryer setup for my boil.
Oh, yeah.
I got a Megapod from Northern Brewer on Craigslist that really changed things for me. It built in, it's got a temperature gauge built into the pot. It's got, a ball valve on it and stuff. So because auto siphons, that's another sore spot. I can't stand them. It's when you can't see, you can't tell when the liquid is coming through it, and they're a pain to put together and clean, and I hate them. So everything I do is I don't have any pumps, but I gravity flow everything, so it makes things 100% easier for me. So yeah, the brew in the bag works good for me. My daughter has talked about going electric. I'm just dialed in with what I've got, and I'm not ready to change anything at this point. So,
and you're doing 5-gallon batches, I'm assuming, right? Based off of what I've seen on your Instagram.
I've done some bigger, and I do have a kegel that I'll probably brew with more this summer when I go up to Minnesota, because I've got a friend that I think we'll brew together, and we'll probably do some 10-gallon batches and split them there. But yeah, mostly 5-gallon batches here.
How that's a great segue. We are all spoiled with equipment, obviously. Like Todd and James have like the best system you can possibly have. When you want to go electric, talk to James and talk to Todd, because they've got something perfect for you, I'm sure.
Yep.
But we all are spoiled with incredible systems and continuously doing that. But ours are at one spot. You split your time between two states. Do you drag your stuff with you to brew, or do you keep brew stations at each place for convenience sake?
I'll take some of the smaller things like my hop spiders and the brew bags, but I got a kegel up there and a separate. I use propane. We brew outside. That's another thing. I started out brewing inside, and if I still brewed inside, we'd probably be divorced because I'd have destroyed my wife's kitchen by now. But it's really nice to brew outside and take the garden hose out and just clean everything up when you're done. So I'll take some of the small stuff, but the big stuff I've got up there, so I don't have to haul it back and forth.
Now you're a winter Arizonan, right? Like that's the
right.
Todd. Yeah. You spent a lot of time in Arizona, like a couple years, right?
I lived there about 3 years. We actually rented a place in Chandler, and then went to Queen Creek and built a house, and thought we were going to stay there longer, but I ended up getting transferred back after 2 years. But I really enjoyed Arizona. Where do you go in Arizona?
Well, so we're in Ahwatukee. We're right on the edge of Chandler, basically. Okay. So yeah, we're very familiar with Chandler and Queen Creek. And this is actually our residence. That we have it's a lake cabin up in Minnesota, but this is our. We're probably here 7 months out of the year. My oldest daughter and her husband and two of our grandkids live like half a mile away from us. And then my other daughter lives up in Prescott Valley, which is up in the mountains about an hour and a half away. So most of my immediate family is down here. And then we go. We're originally from North Dakota. We spent a lot of time in Minnesota too. So we have a place up there, and that's where it gets too hot here in the summer for us.
Well, not to stereotype, Fred. I assumed you were from Minnesota just off the afflection and the voice. I mean, you had that. Now that you said North Dakota, that made sense too. Minnesota. The brewing, Todd. I don't think you. I mean, I know what I was going to mention earlier that I didn't yet. What's interesting is a lot of people who brew and maybe have some years behind them. That's the nice way of calling y'all older. Y'all started forever ago and then had a lull and then got back into it. When you were in Arizona, Todd, you never brewed, or did you brew in Arizona?
I don't think I brewed some extract and bottled it there, but it was just one or two times. It was difficult time because my kids were very small. I was traveling a lot. I really got back into brewing when I moved back from Arizona, right after I moved back. And I have almost the same story you do. I started, in the 80s and brewed several batches and then stopped brewing for quite a while. And it's the same thing. I mean, we bought kits, and I know some of them were pre-hopped and some had little hop bags, and we added the hops at some point. But I mean, it was super simple. And it's real interesting. At the very beginning, you said something that really caught my ear. You said that you oxidized it really bad now, but you didn't know it then. We didn't call that taste oxidation back then. We called it the homebrew taste. All homebrew back then had a taste to it, and you're like, it's a good beer, but it's got that homebrew taste. I'm pretty confident that was always oxidation.
Yeah.
Yep, mine was the same exactly.
Oh yeah, I was just trying to picture y'all brewing in the summer in Arizona. Fred, no wonder you go to Minnesota.
Well, see, I brewed a batch on Monday, and that's going to be my last beer in Arizona for the winter season, I'll call it, because my fermentation chambers in the garage, it's basically made from an old dorm fridge that has got a cabinet built around it. It works fine, but now the garage, we're hitting 100 degrees here pretty often, at least in the 90s for the last couple of weeks. So my garage gets warm enough where that thing has to run steady. So I'm just trying to get this last batch fermented, and I'll get it kegged and I'll start kind of winding down on the shut off the fermentation chamber. I have a kind of a backup keezer in the garage too, so I'll start getting that emptied out, and then I've got a triple tap kegerator in my backyard, and that's starting to run pretty steady too. So I gotta start preparing for the really hot weather.
You and Todd are the same person. Oh my god, my backup keezer, and then my other kegerator.
Yeah.
But my wife does not like that I figure out how to use Craigslist. That's for sure. So constantly, and then I don't drive, so it's like, well, I need you to take me over to Chandler or Gilbert. What for? Like, it's either some guy's got a few kegs for sale, or this teaser came up, and it's like, well, this is too good a deal to pass up. So
you have to buy it on principle. Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I do the same thing. It's like, and my wife, when she does it to me, I give her flat when she's like, I went to Kohl's and I saved $200 by buying this $100 dress, and then I get after her. But then I would come home from Best Buy. What are those, Philip Hue lights for? No, babe, listen, I saved us $50 by buying these at $85. I'm not too bright, but no, the splitting your time up seems fun, especially at the lake. I'm assuming you don't drag a kegerator with you. You've got something to dispense up there.
Well, up until just recently, my wife is going to allow me to have a kegerator up there. So I don't even have one yet. We're putting an addition on our cabin, so we'll have a little more room. And I said, well, that's fine, but I'm getting a kegerator because I have bottled and brought bottles up there. But since I started kegging, I can't stand bottling anymore. Even just bottling up the stuff for the Kolsch cup was like, oh, I can't believe I got to put some of this in bottles. But now that doesn't explain why I still have like 10 cases of empty beer bottles sitting around here. But you hate to get rid of them after you've cleaned them and got the labels off and all that. So yeah, I might take the kegerator I have here and actually haul that back up, because then my wife said I could get a new kegerator here. So that's it. All depends.
There you go.
It depends how much room we have in the van when we head up north. If I got room to squeeze the kegerator in there,
you'll make room.
We'll do that. But I know.
Well, I would like to mention one thing before we move on. There may have been some miscommunication on Josh's end on the Kolsch Cup. You are always welcome to send a keg next year. So we do accept kegs as well. We don't want to inconvenience you in any way.
You know what's so funny? Yeah. We actually I had somebody, he was joking, totally joking. He's a member of our super duper homebrew club, but a guy wrote in, he goes, of all the people to make me bottle, Josh, how did you betray me? You made me bottle. Why would you betray me? I was like, I didn't even think of it that way. You're right. Next year we got to do kegs. We have to.
And that was another stressful part. It's like, okay, even if I think it tastes good in the keg, how is a bottle going to taste when it gets to you guys? I mean, you don't know what's going to happen to it in shipment and all that stuff. I thought for sure it'd be broken. That I was happy to hear it got there in one piece. So
it is stressful. It can be. And when James was that 2 years ago? No, it was 2018 when we met up at Oster Blues in Austin, and you even hand delivered it, and that was still stressful with the bottle, especially when they're like, "Oh, there was an obvious infection," and we're drinking it from the keg. And we're like, "Wait a second, no, there's not."
But if you remember that I had made the point of noting that the people that judged the beer, one or two of the people that judged it weren't even BJCP certified judges.
How dare they?
Which I thought was odd.
How dare they? Well, that was actually a BJCP event, though. That was the problem.
Yeah,
that was the problem. It wasn't the distinguished Kolsch Cup where people don't care and everything. It's just the Wild West. I remember. But the one thing I will say is that was one of the funnest days I've had hanging out with you, man. At Oster Blues, we had a blast.
It was fun. Emily loved it too.
Yeah, I was gonna say we had a good time. Which, speaking to Emily, his daughter, that's gonna be my segue to the next question. Fred, you brew frequently with your daughter. I know you said you brew by yourself and you're comfortable doing it, but brewing with other people, my book is always the way to go. Are you making brewing like a family thing? Like, would you like to get the grandkids interested in it? Obviously, at a responsible perspective when they're old enough to drink and blah, blah, blah. But I think, I've been trying to get my daughters more involved in the brewing process. And my oldest is 10. And I think preserving the craft, the easiest way to do it is getting people, specifically family, into it. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I'll tell you, if you look, I think I've got a couple posts on my Instagram. All my granddaughters love grinding grain, so it's like, I think I made the comment, I don't need a motorized grinder because I've got an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 5-year-old to grind the grain. And then I've even kind of Tom Sawyered them a little bit. So I challenge them to see how many times they can turn the crank without stopping, and then the next one has got to try and beat that. So yeah, I
Brilliant.
I hardly have to grind the grain myself anymore. I just have a hand crank one. But so they like doing that. They help mash in, stir a little bit. Worry a little bit about having a big old pot of hot wort there, but they'll do a little stirring, and they'll be around, because usually if my youngest daughter comes down, she's the one that actively brews, and she's got one granddaughter. Then my other daughter, she's not a brewer herself, but she helps me brew. She likes her and her husband like to drink my beer, so I kind of make them help out once in a while too. It's like, well, if you're going to drink it, you gotta help me. So just because it's like you say, it's nice to have someone else around to talk to when you're doing it. So, it's definitely a family affair when we go up to my granddaughter's place in Prescott Valley. We'll usually do a brew day while I'm up there. And then when she comes down, she likes brewing on my setup because mine's a little more organized and convenient. She's kind of still hauling things in and out. So my setup is convenient because it has to be for me. So she likes brewing down here too. So we usually brew when we're together.
Nice. And see, I sound like a mix of your daughters where brewing's okay, but I like other people to brew because I like drinking. And I'm lucky that when I'm up there, usually on the brew days when I'm up there, Todd and James are gracious and they don't ask too much of me yet.
Not next time, though. Next time he's doing the whole brew day. We can't wait, right, James?
That's right. We're going to set watch. Heck, we may even put it live.
So is your daughter, which one of you do you think consistently makes better beer? Would you care to comment on that?
Well, we make we do a little different styles. I think we both make good beer. I stick to stouts, and just kind of plain stouts. I've done your guys' milk stout, and I've done the breakfast stout. In fact, I'm planning a breakfast stout brew for one of my first ones when we go back up north. But and she brews a little bit more. Like she just brewed a milkshake IPA, and she's doing a blood orange saison when she was down here the time before. So she does different, probably a little different
Types
style
of beer.
beers
Okay.
than I do. But
don't tell Josh you're doing that beer that you mentioned. I won't say it, but he'll be over at your house if you're not careful.
I will find you in Minnesota. I will. I've been meaning to go back up there. I love that state. It's a beautiful state. We went to HomebrewCon there 2017, or when was it, guys?
That was a really nice trip.
It was a really nice
Yes.
trip. I really enjoyed how it was the middle of summer, and in the evenings we needed jackets. It was like Portland. It was great.
Yeah, sweatshirts in the evenings, shorts all day long. It's
Yeah, especially if you're on the lake. Golly, that's going to be a blast. Yeah, I was. Go ahead.
Tell me again what lake you're on.
It's called Little Toad.
Oh, Todd's really trying to find you. Todd, don't get creepy. Don't get creepy. I'm not editing this out.
I just want to see where it is on the map because
it's near Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. So you're right on the east, on the west border, about the middle of the state.
Okay.
Don't tell him, Fred. We have dozens of listeners, and they might find you. Well, which actually, I have to bring this up. I'd be remiss if I didn't, Todd. When you gave your personal cell phone number on episode 225, for those who haven't heard it yet, have you gotten inappropriate messages yet? But besides the ones I sent you,
I don't think I've gotten a single call.
Okay.
I mean, except for people that were interested in the brewing system.
Okay, because I always joke about being, I will say this. I joke too much about it. We actually have a solid audience. And because our podcast is a super niche within a super niche, like people who homebrew are already a super niche of the population. And then people who homebrew and listen to podcasts is like a super duper niche. And so I wasn't actually worried because our listeners, we do have more than a dozen. We have a few dozen. They're all good people. So I knew they wouldn't do that.
I'll tell you, my daughter is also the one that started getting me listening to Homebrew Happy Hour. And because she's, she got my Instagram set up and then she said, "Oh, do you listen to this podcast?" And I said, well, I didn't say what's a podcast, but I'd actually never listened to a podcast before. So Homebrew Happy Hour was the first podcast altogether that
I'm sorry she did that to you. I'm so sorry.
Well, it was and now of course there's probably half a dozen I listen to pretty regular, because once you start, it's like you just they just keep popping up. But anyway, yeah, you guys have been around the longest as far as my podcast listening days.
What episode did you start with us? Because I need to know how you judge us.
It was the later. I've gone back and listened to the earlier ones, but it's probably been probably 2018, something like that. So
yeah, I looked it up. I've been you started your account around then too.
Yeah,
because we've been following you since September 2018 is when we started.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, and it's been fun. Like I said, I love your Instagram. It's like I'm too kitschy with like my jokes and Josh thinks he's funny. Yours is very wholesome and just straight brewing, and I do like the family aspect of it, because like I said, you're very it's just very much like, here's what I like to do and here's what I'm doing. And especially your video clips, we got to get you doing our video clips, because you're just you're to the point. Like, here's what I'm doing, here's what I did, have a good day.
Yeah, that was kind of it's like, maybe I should try doing a video. And I just had, I think the first one I had my son-in-law. I just filmed my daughter and I don't know what we were doing. Can't remember what if we were putting hops in or something. And it's like, I'm just going to start talking, and that's how it is. So it's very unreheased, and
as it should be. Organic is the way to go. Like, James gets after me if I get too scripted with videos. Like when James's video, I think it's our most viewed one of you doing and it's a few years old now. We need to redo it, but it has him going over electric all grain or all-in-one systems. And I was like, I could write you out a script or whatever. He goes, I've got it. That's okay. and he didn't, I wouldn't say winged it, because he does his homework on the products that he's enjoying. But that whole video was a one take and James just, he was firing from the hip, man. And I was, the whole time I'm like, my arm was getting tired because I wasn't planning on it being a one take. So I was holding the camera and I was like, no, I think people appreciate that. I think that's what the best feedback we ever get about this show is like, I feel like y'all aren't rehearsed. And then I tell them, cause we're not.
No, we're just like you. We're just homebrewers.
Exactly.
Yeah, a lot of weeks he'll say, what did you think about the questions this week? And I'm like, I haven't read them.
I do.
I'm just going to answer them. I think it's more
that is the one
way.
thing we script, and it's not a script. I send them a PDF outline because someone has to do their homework. It's not going to be me. I made the outline. That's all I'm good for. Okay. That took me 4.5 hours to type in 100 characters. But, the organic side is something people appreciate. Fred, before I let you go, a couple more things I'd like to cover. You kind of did when you're talking about brewing. The styles you brew or your daughter brew, are you doing that because that's the styles you enjoy to drink, or are you just trying to experiment with styles? Because on your Instagram, you seem to be all over the spectrum with brewing. like you just said, that spicy blonde ale. Like you're not afraid of trying new things. So what are your favorite styles to brew, if you even have a favorite style to brew?
Well, originally I was a stout porter guy. I mean, I like dark beers. That's what I started. The first batch I brewed was a stout, and I've always liked dark beers. So, in fact, there was a time, probably similar to James, I wouldn't even drink an IPA. I don't understand why people drink these. Now I do enjoy IPAs. I make IPAs, but I started with a stout, and I make the one I have on tap now. It's kind of an experimental. It's made with midnight wheat instead of any roasted barley or black patent. So I'm kind of playing around with the recipe there. There's some guys on a podcast I listen to called Final Gravity, and they got me thinking about, instead of trying to make a beer and put a lot of additives to get a flavor, I was kind of going for something with the s'mores, but without using artificial stuff. So the midnight wheat, I'm going to use some honey malt in the next batch and play around with that. But I always usually have I got 3 taps on my kegerator, so I usually try to have a dark beer. I usually try to have an IPA now, and I've got some good feedback on a couple of my IPAs. My daughters and their husbands, they like IPAs, so I usually have one of those on tap. And then I rotate. The spicy blonde is one I make. This is my second batch this winter, so I usually make a couple batches. That goes over good with people. I do a Belgian wit. I have that on tap right now. It's similar to your 8-bit wit recipe, real close to that. Let's see what I've got. And then now I've got the session IPA, the Happy Little Hops. I gave that a try, and then I'm going to try the Low Tide and compare those two. Just because sitting by the pool all day, got to have something maybe a little, my last IPA was 7%. So this way you can have a few more of them and enjoy it a little longer. So
Todd Ked, for me, the grapefruit, the Ocarina grapefruit, and delicious recipe. But I also forgot that his finished out at like 7.8, or what was it, Todd? It finished at,
yeah, it was high. That's why I've been mixing it with your beer, because it's a great flavor when you mix the two together. I've never been a beer mixer. I'm convinced now. I mean, it's it really is. It's I've got to get all the ingredients and determine how to brew that beer, because it's a great.
Your grapefruit though turned out good. The problem was it was too smooth. And I'm at my folks' place on Sunday, and I drink in 8-ounce increments, Fred, because I don't have a problem. And so I was drinking, and after like the second and a half one, I was like, oh yeah, there it is. I gotta slow down. It was too smooth. That's the problem with me. That's why I think the appeal of Kolsch to me in those lower, sessionable or pseudo sessionable beers was, like you're saying, I like drinking because of the flavor. The buzz is fun too. Don't get me wrong, kids. The buzz is fun. But I like being able to drink and not have a headache and not be schnockered and be able to function. And like when James started turning me on to the German line of pills and all the beauty, or even his Czech lagers, I was like, oh, this is life changing. So yeah,
the lower alcohol, you can sample more 8-ounce glasses.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm not a big beer guy.
I brewed in fact, talking about other styles too, the Tudor style, the Dusseldorf alt beer. And that came in, I think, 5.5 or so. It was my oldest daughter said after I tapped that, she said, "This is my new favorite beer of the beers you make." So that was a great beer. I look forward to making that one again too. But and the Kolsch's are good. So I like them all these days. So it's,
again, you and Todd are the same person, man. We're like trying to get. Go ahead.
No, you think we are now, but I'm telling you, I've been looking at this while we're talking, and I am spending the rest of my summer at Birchmere Resort Campground. Because I'm looking at the photographs here. And the second comment is, I've always heard there's a lot of lakes in Minnesota, but I've always been in the Minneapolis area when I visited there. There are a lot of lakes in northern Minnesota. Wow. Oh, yeah. Can't. Well, a lot.
The license plates say land of 10,000 lakes. So
I believe it.
There's supposedly more than that. Yeah. we spent about almost 20 years at Birchmere Campground. They have like seasonal places. So we had a trailer there that we spend, when I was working, we'd spend weekends and stuff there. And then a couple of years ago, we bought a cabin on the same lake just because we like the lake so much. It's a smaller lake, but it's real nice. So yeah,
it is beautiful. It is a beautiful place. I'm jealous that you're going to spend the summer there, and I am going to spend the summer
with me
in hell.
But 7 months of hell.
But I'll be out there sometimes, Todd. It'll be good. We always have fun.
Yep.
It's been like a month almost since I've been there. Or not quite. It's been 3 weeks.
The only saving grace of where we live is that it's kind of like Arizona, but Arizona light. It does get really hot, but it's pretty dry in this Comanche area. So at nights in the summer, it kind of cools down. I'm originally from Austin, and it's just hot all the time. It's so humid that you're just hot at 10 o'clock at night. But I would imagine where you're staying, it must be just wonderful during the summer. So we're lucky. There's no doubt about it. And there's so many good beers in that area. Are there many good brew pubs and beers around where you're living with it being a little more remote?
There are. We have to, you got to drive 20 miles, but within 50 miles, there's quite a few. So they're a little more spread out. My wife and I both are vaccinated now, so we're looking forward to being able to enjoy some stuff this summer, whereas last summer we didn't get to do much. But and luckily I have a lot of good friends back there still that all like to drink, so we'll make the most of it.
Oh, it looks like it's 50 or 60 miles from Fargo. Do they have a lot of good brew pubs in Fargo?
There's several there, so that's why if you get to the Fargo Moorhead area, there's 4 real good ones, I would say, and then but there's several smaller ones too. And then some of the small towns around us have good places too. Perham is a little town that you wouldn't think had a brewery, but they do, and they crank out some good stuff. So. And same with these other small towns, Walker, and I'm surprised Detroit Lakes doesn't really have one of its own yet. But I'm not going to open one, so I guess we'll have to wait.
Yet.
Yeah.
You're retired.
Well, I'm going to have to try that area sometime. It looks really
You've
neat.
convinced Todd now. He's selling the company.
Oh. I am. Well, you're going to buy it, right? We already discussed this.
Yeah. Well,
you come up there and brew, and then I'll come to your place and brew this winter sometime.
We would. Hey, don't tease us, Fred, because we would love to have you out to the barn. Todd's got the space for you. We would love to have you. I think that would be a fun brew weekend. In fact, we should have him be a tester, because what I'm on the brow tag, because where I'm going with my final question for you before letting you go is, and I said that like 10 minutes ago, I was letting you go, but one more question. What's the future for Blind Brew Guy, which is plugging it. It'll be in the show notes. If you're on Instagram, follow him, Blind Brew Guy, all one word, because that's how Instagram works. Are you planning on I want to start consistently brewing on an electric system, or I want to start doing bigger batches, or is there a future, or do you just take this because it's fun, a retirement hobby? Are you just kind of taking it as the wind blows?
That's pretty much it. Like I say, I'm at the point where I'm comfortable with what I'm doing. So my daughter and I kind of plan things out. We talked about starting to do some 10-gallon batches and then splitting, each taking 5. So that could be in the future, but we're just kind of playing it by ear. And if something comes up, I recently started fermenting under pressure. So I've done a couple batches that way, and I really like it.
It's cool, isn't it, to do it that way? I've the last 2 batches I've done that way. I really like the way it turns out. Yeah.
So I was going to do it with the Kolsch, but I didn't dare because I'd only just started. It's like, well, I don't want to screw this up. But kind of in hindsight, I could have done it with that too. But yeah, it's so nice to transfer and not. I mean, you don't have to open or touch anything. It's all close transfers and the whole works. So yeah. So I think I'll play around with that a little more, and yeah, just kind of see how things go from there.
Awesome. Well, like I said, everyone go follow him. If you do Instagram, which Todd, I had to remind you have an Instagram, Todd. He let like 4 months go in between using it, and I was talking to him about it. He goes, do I do Instagram? Like, yes, you have. And he actually is getting more followers than any of us. I think more people I've seen his. But go follow Fred, Blind Brew Guy. I think, Fred, your story is really awesome. I love how even with your absolute limited vision, there's no excuses from you. You're still doing what you want to do and getting what you want out of life, and it makes me feel terrible about myself. So I appreciate. I really do appreciate. I appreciate your time in doing the show with us. We really do appreciate having you come on.
No problem. I got more time than money, I always say. So
you and me both, man. But anyway, so we will have to have you on in the future. And again, not even kidding. I know Todd, especially as vaccinations are proliferating and travel's getting safer and whatnot, I think Todd would actually be up to having you. Obviously, you're going the wrong direction, but we'll have to coordinate sometime because we love collaborating with people. And then COVID kind of screwed up a lot of plans that we had for a lot of different projects. But I think I can speak on behalf of Todd and James. We'd love to welcome you to Texas.
Absolutely.
Yep. That'd be fun. You could see, that's a great song, boy. You could say your system is so easy, even a blind guy could brew on.
Exactly. That's what see. Golly, now he's going to take my job, Todd. He just stole.
I love that.
Anyway, thank you so much. And Todd and James, hey, I'm gonna from now on have y'all do every interview with me because I actually really enjoyed having y'all on. I'm surprised, Todd, you contributed a lot to the conversation. That was good.
I enjoyed it. It was really nice to meet you.
Yeah, same here.
Almost in person. So
it's been a lot of fun. Just been like kind of shooting the crap with some friends. So I do.
There you go.
He self-censored himself. I love that you self-censored. This is a family show.
Well, my grandkids want to watch it, so I was like, I better.
Well, I'm gonna give inappropriate bleeps then every other word you say, so they think you're some monster.
There you go.
Hey, Fred, thank you so much for your time, guys. I'll see y'all later.
See ya.
See ya. Thanks.
Bye.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrew.happyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page. Or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. Thank you to our show sponsor, Imperial Yeast. Get a free pack of Imperial Yeast with your monthly recipe kits when you join our Super Duper Homebrew Club. Go to homebrewhappyhour.com/club to learn more. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.